Okay, is everybody out there? Meteorologist Joe Rayo here. Pinch hitting for the Joe and Joe show tonight. Tonight you've got one Joe, me, on Joe Rayo Weather on YouTube. And if you have not already subscribed, please do. We are trying to work our way up toward the 1,000 mark. Technical difficulties grounded the Joe and Joe show tonight. Joe, of course, is located out on Long Island. And I guess the problems abound out there with the optimum signal. They must be doing something wrong. I kept telling Joe he sounded like he was underwater. So as a result of that, somebody said maybe Joe Rayo could go on and do a live stream. Well, here I am, not on Joe's network, but on mine. So here you are. Had an interesting afternoon. I went down to New Rochelle with my wife, Renata, and we spent the afternoon with noted Lower Hudson Valley journalist Phil Reisman. Phil has a show on WVOX 1460 AM radio at 12 noon. It's called High Noon, and we spent an hour chatting about a lot of things, including myself and my upcoming article that's coming out in Westchester Magazine in the February issue, detailing my career, my life, my sudden forced retirement, which took place via the shutdown of FiOS One News back on November the 13th. And we had a lot of fun talking about all sorts of stuff. When I get a chance, I have a disc of the show, and when we get a chance to edit it down a little bit, get rid of some of the commercials and the newscast, we'll try to put it on my Facebook page, also Joe Rayo Weather at Facebook. So we got a lot of people coming online here right now. We have Diego Brace. Hi, how do you do, Diego? And Dennis Cassia, William Huber, Latex Dreams. Dennis is saying, I'm planning to go to Springfield, Mass on Saturday. Any chance of freezing rain? You know what, Dennis? Aside from the initial precipitation shot, in the next first hour or two, which may have a little bit of sleet mixing in initially, but even up in Springfield, Massachusetts, it looks like it's going to be mostly rain for anything else. That's kind of weird to see that up in South Central New England during what is normally the coldest month of the year, the month of January. Now we're into late January now, but it doesn't look like much of a freezing precipitation event, even up north, up in, again, southern and central sections of New England. Jeffrey Maris saying hello to everybody. William Huber, Joe R. Have number one show tonight. Yeah, by default, by the fact that we had some technical difficulties at Joe's place out on Long Island. Again, the optimum signal wasn't quite coming in the way it should. We have Joseph Gallo saying, how you doing, gang? It's kind of weird to have all this on my channel at just a bit after 7 o'clock, 7:13 right now. Let's talk a little bit about weather. We had a swath of mid and high level cloud cover that came in and thickened up really fast during the course of the afternoon hours. I think tonight's going to be considerably cloudy, and temperatures overnight, for the most part, will be in the 20s, probably to around 30 degrees if you're watching, let's say, along the coastline or in an urbanized area, probably close to 30. Most everybody else will be in the 20s. Maybe in some rural valley spots well to the north and west, it might dip briefly into the upper teens. But generally speaking, 20s overnight. For tomorrow, I think we'll start cloudy, but I think during the course of the day, we're going to be seeing more and more in the way of sunshine breaking through the cloud cover. And in fact, we may have a fair amount of sunshine during the course of the latter part of the day tomorrow. Temperatures tomorrow, 46 to 52 degrees. Normal high temperature in the lower Hudson Valley at this time of the year, 35 to 40. And here we are talking about 46 to 52 for an afternoon high tomorrow. Not bad at all. It's going to get cloudy tomorrow night. And I think first thing on Saturday morning, we're going to see rain. And it looks like it's going to be 98 or 99% rain. The only places I could see where there could be a little bit of freezing precipitation issues will be over the higher terrain well to the north and west, and just at the very beginning of the event, which to me will be sometime between 6 and 9 a.m. on Saturday, again in the lower Hudson Valley, and that'll vary depending upon where you are in the tri-state metropolitan region. But again, initially over the highest terrain, a little bit of sleet coming down initially for an hour or two or three, maybe. But most of what's going to come down on Saturday will be in the form of rain. And I have a feeling that the rain will come down in spurts of moderate to maybe even heavy during the course of the afternoon. So for the second consecutive Saturday, we're going to be dealing with a zonk, if you will. Of course, last Saturday we had the snow. This coming Saturday, it looks like it's going to be mostly rain. The rain will probably quit, at least the way I'm timing it out, around or soon after midnight. There may also be some areas of fog around as well, late tomorrow night and on into Saturday too. And then on Sunday, I'm just calling it partly sunny or partial sunshine, with temperatures on Saturday chillier, 35 to 44. Temperatures on Sunday, probably around 43 degrees. And then as we get into next week, guess what? It looks like it's going to be more or less dry with near seasonable temperatures, maybe seasonably mild, might we call it. Temperatures, again, 35 to 40, the norm. And I'm calling for highs for the early to middle part of next week, generally in the upper 30s to around or just above 40. So, again, not a bad stretch of weather coming our way for next week. The only bump in the road will be coming our way on Saturday. And the next chance for any snow of any sort may not come our way until not this weekend, but the following weekend. It might get cold enough and we might have some kind of a snow maker or a storm system coming our way to produce snow. But you know what? Now I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm talking about 9 or 10 days down the road. And who's to say things are going to change? They certainly will, probably between now and then. Let's see. Any questions here? Latex Dream says, neat, huh? And Johnny Quest says, yes, William, I'm here. I love how Rayo's weather discussion on this channel. Also, thumbs up, Jeffrey Mariner, Beryl Rakin. Joe, you've got new subscribers. Well, thank you. Again, I'm at about 560 or so subscribers right now, trying to push up toward 1,000. And it'll be nice to get there. The king of all media, Joe Chiaffi, of course, has far many more subscribers on his YouTube channel. But of course, he got started a lot earlier than I did. I didn't get this channel up and going until last fall. And slowly but surely, we're seeing the numbers climb up. Betsy Luna says hi. Hi to you, Betsy. And Johnny Quest says Mount Washington might get some snow. Well, of course, how many feet above sea level is Mount Washington? I think 6,300. And you can even climb Mount Washington during the summertime. So at that altitude, yeah, they probably will see more of a frozen precipitation pattern than a wet precipitation pattern. Latex Dream says, hey, Joe, you look good. Well, that's it. You know, I got a little dressed up today for my little trip down to WVOX in New Rochelle, and it was a very lovely afternoon, not just with me, but also my wife actually made it onto the airwaves as well. A lot of people don't know, but I am married to a meteorologist. My wife and I, we first met in April of 1980 at a private weather company in Queens, New York. That's when we first met. I got up the nerve to ask her out on a date. A couple of years later, we got engaged in July of 83 and married in September of 84. So we've been together now for a good long time. And again, we got together because, again, she was a meteorologist and she was brought to the company that I was working for by the president of the company, a gentleman by the name of Todd Gross. She started out as an intern and then worked her way into the lineup as a full-time meteorologist, I believe, in 1980. Oh, no, 1982. So she became full-time in 82 after being an intern there in 80 into 81. And the rest is history. So a lot of people don't know I'm married to a meteorologist. I said on WVOX, our biggest fights back then back in the early days, our biggest fights were over the forecast, because sometimes she would go with one thing and I would say, no, I think it's going to be something else, especially in the winter when we were discussing snow amounts. We never could quite get together on, just the right accumulation number. And so we used to have a lot of arguments. Those that was the source of the main arguments back uh, in our early days of our relationship. But we've managed to work through all of those arguments. We're still here. We'll be making it 36 years of wedded bliss this coming September. Of course, we also have two kids. Hard to call them kids now, though. My son will be 30 in October, and he's getting married in the summertime in July. And my daughter is 26. Yeah, 26. Wow, time goes by fast when you're having fun. And she is a speech pathologist. Both of them have master's degrees. Neither my wife or I, we never went for any further than a bachelor's. But my son and my daughter, they both have masters. My daughter got her master's just this past spring. They are both teachers, and we are inordinately proud of what they have accomplished so far in their young lives. Anyway, Betsy Luna says, I'll be watching next week. My kids will be camping upstate next weekend. Well, we'll see what happens, Betsy. Super Bowl weekend next weekend, of course. And William Huber wants to know, do I fight with my wife when your forecast is different from hers? Well, she's kind of retired now. She hasn't done much in the way of forecasting in recent years. She was actually more a forensic meteorologist. She for a while she after she had our first child, she went ahead and worked for a short while with another weather company doing forensic meteorology reports. She also used to go to court and serve as an expert witness, bringing the weather records and discussing past weather events for lawyers and claim adjusters. So that was an interesting thing for her, but she's been out of the loop for a while in terms of weather, although she certainly knows her stuff and certainly can read the maps. So, had I thought of this in advance, I would have called her down. We could have had the Joe and Renata show tonight. That would have been interesting. In fact, I'm wondering if she's watching right now. If she is, honey, come on down. Let's do a show together. Joseph Gallo says, did you have a chance to see the GFS 12Z? I didn't have a chance to browse social media this afternoon, but I'm sure the posts were entertaining. Well, as I said, it looks like most of the models are aiming toward a milder or warmer type of weather regime as opposed to what we normally would expect at this time of the year. And the Saturday event looks to me mostly like 90 or 95% rain with maybe an initial shot of frozen precip at higher elevations, maybe above a couple of thousand feet. But I really don't think right now that even in the higher elevations, you're going to see more than just some sleet or ice, not much in the way of snow at all. And again, as I mentioned to Dennis Cassia, who will be up in Springfield, Massachusetts this weekend, even up there, the majority of what's going to fall looks to be mostly wet, not white or icy. Let's see. Can you show a map? I can't show a map. I haven't put in the OBS studio. The thing is also, I'm strongly considering, I still have Windows 7. And I'm not sure whether or not it would be worthwhile. How many of you have Windows 10? And if you have Windows 10, tell me, is it easier? Do you like it better than Windows 7 or Windows 8? Because I've heard, going back and forth on both sides. Here she is. Here's my wife. As you probably heard, dear Joe had technical difficulties and could not do the Joe and Joe show tonight. So I said, well, here she is. My lovely wife, Renata. Say hello to the people out there.
Hey, everybody.
It's been a big day for her because not only is she on television now, she was also on WVOX. She was on radio with me at the radio station. Phil Reisman was asking her questions as well. So what would you like to say?
Dennis had a question earlier.
About Springfield.
About Springfield.
Right. I
answered it?
I already answered it. Joe, do you see any flooding from this rain? Right now, I'm thinking that we're going to see maybe up to 3/4 of an inch of rain. And here where we are in Putnam Valley, we still have a goodly amount of snow, at least on the grass. So if it comes down hard enough, actually between the fog and the snow, fog and the rain, I think we're going to get rid of a lot of the snow finally on Saturday, this upcoming weekend. Right. So I don't see a terrible situation in regard to flooding, but maybe in some localized poor drainage spots that might be that might be the case. What happened to Joe Chiappi? Diego Brase is asking. Again, Joe had technical issues. His optimum signal was not very strong tonight, and he was coming in and out and breaking up. So he had to put it away tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to do the usual shtick tomorrow night. But tonight you're stuck with just me and the missus.
Hello.
I'm asking them right now, some of them, how many of you out there have Windows 10? Because I'm considering switching off from Windows 7 to Windows 10 before I put in OBS here. But I've also heard some people say it's a pain in the blankety blank, and others are saying, oh, it's wonderful. So if you have Windows 10, say something on the chat board and put up your comments. Renata, you're a meteorologist. Yes, you are a meteorologist, aren't you?
That's right.
Why don't you tell them where you got your meteorological knowledge from?
My degree is from the State University up at Oneonta. And I started interning at CompuWeather, where Joe and I met. And I was there for a good 10 years. And before Joseph was born.
Well, you left about 2 weeks before you gave birth to
Joseph.
Our son.
Yeah.
So that was 1990,
right.
October of 1990, October the 5th, if I believe correctly. She joined us. So the first time we met was in April of 1980, and she was an intern there initially. You went back to school
finished up,
came back in 81, and then you became full-time, I guess, later in 81 into 82.
Yeah.
And then I got up enough nerve to ask you out.
Right. And we were married in 84. So there you go. There you know our history.
So there you go. And I said, and as I said with Phil Reisman, the biggest fights we used to have back in the day was when you used to go for like 4 inches of snow, and I said, no, it's only going to be 2 inches. And what do you mean that? And that was our major qualms were the forecast.
Yeah, and for a while I did some forensic meteorology.
I mentioned that too.
Part-time,
So Latex Dreams wants to know, Renata, you're a meteorologist? Yes, she is. She probably knows more in terms of or at least she used to know more in terms of the overall thermodynamics and the mathematical. She was a much better mathematician than I am. That's where my son gets his brains from, is not from me. She gets it from him. He gets my sense of humor, but he gets his knowledge, I think, his smarts.
Mathematical mind.
From
I pushed that. Yeah, I really pushed that.
Well, the honest to God truth, folks. This is the honest to God truth. When I worked at News 12, my hours were from like 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 at night. I really did. During the week, I didn't see my kids. So who was the one who was with the kids? Who was the one who helped them with their homework, especially their math homework? But moi. Yeah. So she was very regimental too, right?
Oh yeah. And we had to be, because if one wasn't going to a baseball game, the other one was in a little league baseball game. And as they got older, they were in other sports and things too. So it's tough to balance school and sports.
I think we did a fairly good job with our kids.
I think so too.
I think we did a very good job. I went out and made the money and created the income, and she stayed home with the kids. Was the superintendent of the house here and also superintendent of the kids. And every once in a while, I'd see my kids during the week. Either I'd wake up early in the morning and see them off to school at the school bus stop. Every once in a while when they had a half day, I'd see them before I left for work or whatever. But I really didn't get a chance to see them until the weekend. And then we go to Little League games and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, Windows 10, I got used to it, says Dewey Dodo. Latex Dream says Win 10, I guess in parentheses has Y for yes. Says I have Windows 10. It's okay. I like Windows 7 better. Yeah. See, this is what I've been hearing about. People have been talking about the fact that some like it and some don't. So that's why I have some qualms. But over the last week or so now, every once in a while, my screen will go blue and it will tell me that I no longer have any support for Windows 7, where these little updates would come up periodically. And so they're trying to tell me, go for Windows 10. So they may wear me down eventually. And I'll have to find out. Maybe I'll have somebody put it on. Do two things: put it on for me, and also just clean up all the trash. I haven't. This computer needs a thorough house cleaning, so to speak. Probably with all the cookies and everything else that's accumulated over the last 4 or 5 years in it. So, all right. Well, thanks to the
Back to the weather.
back to the weather. Well, we already went through the forecast. There's not much to talk about. Next week will be a very quiet week, and the only bump in the road is coming our way, as I said, on Saturday with rain, which may, again, in the colder spots, well north and west. And I told Chiavi a couple of days ago, my weather cohort came up with a snow map for the weekend. I said, "Do you really want to do that, Joe? Do you really want to put a map out 4 days in advance?" Well, it's my early call. I said, and now, of course, we're not even talking about snow. Now we're talking about ice. And even that is kind of like semi long shot unless you live in a high terrain area, let's say above a couple of thousand feet. And even up there, it's probably going to change to rain and come down a bit heavily on Saturday. So if you don't have anything to do on Saturday, maybe you want to go to a movie or do some house cleaning or whatever, because Saturday looks like another kind of day. And hopefully we'll be able to dry out a little bit on Sunday. Just looking over the chat here, did you see the GFS for next weekend, Storm? Beryl, she's not talking about this weekend. She's talking about next weekend. And unless you are new, and you probably are, I am one of those who says that beyond 5 days, anything you see on a weather map or a computer model beyond 5 days could be just as well science fiction. Because whatever you see 8, 9, 10 days from now will flip and flop and flop and flip. And
the timing might be as much as 12 to 24 hours off.
It's fun to look at, see what might be coming our way according to the models, 10 or even 15 days out if you want to go that far out. One of the TV stations, in fact, offers you, I think it's Channel 4, they offer you the exclusive 10-day forecast. I'd like to challenge any of you out there to take a look at whatever they're predicting for day 9 or 10, make a note of it, and then when it actually happens, when you get to the date, was it correct? In more often cases than not, it wasn't correct. Things change, either in terms of temperature or sky condition or precipitation. It's just silly to look at something that far down the road and think that it's set in granite. It's going to change, no question about it. Right now, yes. Renata had seen it. The GFS is calling for a chance of snow on Super Bowl Sunday for our area.
Right.
But that's But something in retrospect. Over the last several years, we've had storms, snow, either on or just after Super Bowl Sunday. It's kind of like a tradition. And don't forget, this year, Super Bowl Sunday is on Groundhog Day. So the groundhog and Bill Murray will be in Puxatonia, right? In the snow, probably, if it does pan out.
Right.
Don't worry about next weekend. We'll have a good handle on that. And I'm sure that Joe will put out a snow map for that weekend next Monday or Tuesday. He's gonna kill me. None of you mentioned that. Don't mention this.
Watching.
He is watching? Joe, are you watching? I don't know. Joe's probably steaming because he couldn't get online tonight with that. Anyway, tell all of your friends about Joe Rayo Weather on YouTube. Again, if you're not a subscriber, it doesn't cost you anything. You're getting wonderful conversations like what you're seeing right now, and also talking about weather as well. When we finally decide on whether we stay with Windows 7 or 10, we're going to put the OBS in. And Joe, in fact, is going to come and give me a tutorial on how to work the OBS. So I, too, like he, will have maps to show you and graphics to show you in the weeks and months to come.
So if this happens again, then, he's coming.
Well, all I have to do is, you want to see my forecast? I'll hold my forecast up. There it is, right there. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. I actually sit down and I put all this stuff together. Let's see. Anything else? Joe Rayo, you have a passion for the stars. Why did you not become an astronomer instead of a meteorologist? A very quick story on that. In 1966, we had the Leonid meteor shower. It was supposed to produce, and it did actually in the western United States, 100,000 shooting stars per hour. And here in the East, we wouldn't have seen that much, but we still would have seen a grand display. I was wired for that event. And on the night of that event, November 16th, 1966, the 3 TV weathercasters, including none other than Dr. Frank Field, all promised the same thing: no worse than partly cloudy skies. I did my homework early. I went to bed early. I woke up at the stroke of midnight. My grandfather and I went outside into the backyard to look at this magnificent display, and it was totally and completely clouded over. And I started to cry. I'm not ashamed to say that. I was crying not so much that I missed the shower of meteors, but I was crying because I was led down the beaten path. Because Dr. Frank Field promised me, and all the other guys promised me, it would be no worse than partly cloudy. And the next day, the very next day, I went down to Angie's Candy Store. I lived in Throgs Neck in the Bronx. Went down to Angie's Candy Store. But before that happened, I went to the library and started getting books out on weather and weather forecasting. And one of them, I think, said, look in your local newspaper for weather maps, and you can track the weather systems by looking at the map every single day. And shortly after that, I went to the candy store, started buying the New York Times. Back then, in '66, the daily copy of the Times, a dime. So I went down, plopped my dime down, took the New York Times, which was a lot thicker and a lot heavier back then, I might add, brought it home, cut out the weather map, which was in the back of the newspaper on the weather page, threw out the rest of the newspaper, and I started collecting weather maps. I had a boot box, not a shoe box, but a boot box of over 1,000 maps that I had collected. And in fact, every once in a while when I go through my archives, I run through a stray copy that came out of the box. And I used to put the weather on the blackboard at school. I went to junior high school 101 in the Bronx, and I actually put the weather on the board. And people from other classes, teachers used to look at the weather forecast I used to put up on the board. I got so into it. And in fact, just before the Lindsay snowstorm in '69, I made a pronouncement on the Friday before the storm that there was going to be a snow day on Monday. This is the honest to goodness truth. May I be struck down by lightning if this is not the case. And everybody, it spread like wildfire. Hey, Rayo says we're going to have a snow day on Monday. Of course, the weather forecast for that storm on that Sunday, the 9th of February, was mostly rain or snow changing to rain. Of course, it started to snow. It never changed back to rain. It stayed snow. New York got like 15 inches. The city was completely paralyzed for like 3 or 4 days. We didn't have school for a number of days thereafter, not just that Monday. And when I got back to school, everybody was applauding. They were saying, Joe Rayo is, the weather god, the weather king. And one of my teachers, I think it was Mr. Russo, who questioned my forecast before the storm. And in fact, he even looked down at me and he said, Dr. Frank Field says it's going to be mostly rain. You say it's going to be snow. Who am I going to believe? And when we got back, the school finally opened back up, Mr. Russo came to me and said, you ought to go on TV. You ought to do the weather on television. And I said, well, Mr. Russo, maybe that might happen after I go to school and go to college. And he said, no, I'm not talking about when you go to college. I'm talking about right now. You're so much better than the guys who were on TV then. And so that's how it started. So kind of like I got into weather simply by watching the weather on television, also doing my forecast using the New York Times weather maps through extrapolation and interpolation. That's how I did my forecast back then. And eventually worked my way up. I went to City College to get my degree. And then from City College, I got a job at this company that she mentioned, CompuWeather, that was a startup company in Flushing, Queens. And I was with them from 1978 until I went to News 12 Westchester in 1995. But during my time at CompuWeather, I was on, the two of us, we did, first of all, I should point out, the two of us were one of the rare cases of husband and wife with AMS seals in radio. We both attained our seal of approval. You take a test, you submit cassette tapes or whatever of your work or whatever, and then they judge you as to whether or not you're worthy to get the seal. So we both had AMS seals in radio, and we were doing the weather for CompuWeather. She was on a bunch of stations. I was on a bunch of stations, and so we were doing that until, again, 1990, I should say, when it was time for her to leave to give birth to our son, and you never came back.
Had other things to do.
Had other things to do.
A few years later, Maria came along.
Maria came along a few years after that.
Now, in terms of astronomy, it's not like you're out of the picture. I mean, he writes a couple of columns every week for space.com.
I'm on space.com. You can go to space.com, and if you go to space.com, comma Joe Rayo, you probably can see many of the recent columns that I've written for them. I also write a column for Natural History Magazine, a monthly column, and I also do astronomy stuff for the Farmer's Almanac. Not the one with the yellow cover, but that's produced in Dublin, Maine, the old Farmer's Almanac. I do it for the other Farmer's Almanac, the Farmer's Almanac out of Lewiston, Maine. They've only been around for about 205 years. They go back to 1818. The old Farmer's Almanac is about 20 years older. But in any case, so I do a lot of stuff. It's not, I'm out of the picture for the moment in broadcasting on television, and I'm trying to get back into broadcasting. In fact, I'll tell all of you right now, there's an opening at News 12 for weekend weather anchor duties in the evening, and I've applied for that, and we shall see what we shall see. Of course, even though I was with the company for more than 2 decades, and even though I have 8 Emmy nominations under my belt, and even though I actually had a bobblehead, for goodness sake, done, because the folks at Rockland Boulders minor league baseball team felt that they wanted to do that. Even with all of those accomplishments under my belt, apparently it is not a given that I will get that position at News 12 Westchester and Long Island for the weekend position. Again, we shall see what we shall see. It's the explanation is complicated, but it may have something to do with the fact that we're in a situation now where youth. Remember the old saying, "Youth must be served,"
Yeah.
and apparently in broadcasting and in television, that I said with Phil Reisman today on WVOX that if Walter Cronkite, if Harry Reasoner, if Howard K. Smith, Chet Huntley, a whole slew of these broadcasters who we all grew up with, these trusted news veterans, if they were somehow able to come back today and try to get their old spot on the evening news back, it'd be almost good luck. It would be almost difficult to impossible to do, because it just doesn't work that way anymore. It's one thing to have experience, but it also, I guess, the packaging, especially if it's a young package, and that's what people of my generation are up against now if we're trying to get back into television or even radio. It's a sad commentary, and I wish and I hope, I'm not saying I'm out of the running for that position at News 12 on weekends, but it would not be surprising if they went in another or different direction. Again, we shall see what we shall see. I submitted all the paperwork. I put in my request that I am interested in the position. I know all of you. Every place I go, either outside or on